Welcome to the Application Lifecycle Design course. My name is Tim Corey, and in this course, you're going to learn how to set up a C# project to use source control, bug and task management, CI/CD, which is continuous integration and continuous deployment, and multiple deployment environments. And all of this will work in a solo environment or with a team. Best of all, most of the processes will be automated. In the end, you'll have a rock-solid process that is easy, testable, and repeatable. So let's dive right into the overview of this course. We'll start with the course summary. The summary is the real-world process of application development. And that's it right there. That's what this course is all about. Now, there are a couple things I want to point out about this statement before we move on to the course goals. First, real world is important. These are practices that are used by real developers on real projects. However, I do want to note that this is the gold standard. I'm not teaching you the kludged together way that a lot of shops do this. I am teaching the way a lot of developers want to do software development, but just don't know how to get their environments to this point. Also, just to be clear, while I will be covering some actual code in this video, for the most part, this series focuses in on the process, not the code itself. Okay, so let's look at the course goals. The goal is that every time you make a change to your code, it gets tested automatically. Also, a development environment is updated with the new code every time you make a change. Errors are identified and reported to you. The deployment process is tested to ensure a smooth transition to production. Now, if I left the list right here and said you need to do all this, that's a lot of extra work. Running tests, making sure that the development environment is updated, and checking for errors and testing the deployment process. That's a lot of work. Except that, this last point, every step is automated and consistent. So that's the goals of this course, or the goal of the course. To do all these things that are good to do, we need to do, but at the same time add a lot of work to our plate, except for the fact that every step in this process is automated and consistent. Sound good? So let's look at what technologies we'll be using in this course. The first one is Azure DevOps. This is formerly known as Visual Studio Team Services, or VSTS. And this is a big one. This is where Microsoft has given us a free tool to use that will handle source control. It will handle boards and tasks and bugs and all the rest of the stuff. It'll handle deployments. It'll handle a bunch of things. We're going to cover a lot of what Azure DevOps can do in this course. We're going to talk about C# deployment. So this is not just the right-click deploy. This is a real deployment environment. Also, SQL deployment. And that's something you might not have thought about. So we have code, but what about our database? Well, we're going to put this in the process as well. Actually, we're going to do it twice with two different types of databases. We're going to do everything in source control using Git. And that's very important because in the industry, you really need to do source control and know how to use source control. Because source control is an amazing tool that will make your life so much better as a developer. So you need to learn how to use it. We're going to do entity framework deployment. So that's what I said about the SQL deployment. We're not going to just do straight SQL. We're also going to do entity framework code first using the OAuth that Microsoft gives us with ASP.NET MVC. So that's what the entity framework side is going to be. So we'll actually have two different databases that will deploy two different ways to show you both ways of doing it. And we're going to do Azure SQL. That's where our databases will live, is Azure SQL. Now, if you're thinking, man, I'm not quite sure about Azure. First of all, it's cheap, it's secure, it's fast. Can you say the same thing about something on premises? Well, you could try to say it's cheap, but the reality is licensing is going to be expensive. And so is maintenance of it. This is easy. However, if you decide, you know what, I don't want to do that, not a problem. You can do on-premise SQL the same way we're going to do Azure SQL and Azure websites. So we're going to deploy our websites to Azure instead of IIS. But I'm going to point out how you can deploy it to IIS as well. It's really simple, and it's the same process essentially. So while we're going to have SQL and websites in Azure, that doesn't mean you have to use Azure to make this work. It's just easier, cheaper, and faster, but it's up to you. So far, we've covered the course summary, the goal, and the technologies used. But let's look at the resulting design of our application so you can get a picture of what will be happening in each step. So step 1 is the develop step, where we're going to put things in a source control and manage branching and merging and basically a team type environment, even if you're only one developer and you're not working in a team. Step 2, that's where the automation starts. We're going to do unit testing automatically. We're going to build our software automatically. And we're going to avoid the works on my machine, or WOMM. Now, after the testing and building process is complete, your code will automatically move to a deployment environment. And that's based upon the rule that you set up. Within minutes of committing your code, step 1, the change will be live in the environment of your choice, step 3. All that's going to happen automatically, which saves you time and ensure that when it's time to go live with your changes, you're prepared to do that because you've already done it multiple times. So that's the application lifecycle design course and what we'll be doing in the upcoming lessons. When you're ready, move on to the next lesson.